Good morning and welcome to the Adult Education and Workforce Development Statewide webinar for March 9th, 2022. I am Jerry Hafner, and joining me this morning is the Adult Education team, and we have lots of special guests. Let's begin this morning with, as we always do, an inspirational success story. This comes from Impact Institute. My name is Rachel. I grew up on my parents' small farm in rural LaGrange, Indiana. My family is Amish, which is why I never graduated from high school. You see, Amish parents only send their kids to school from grades 1 through 8. When I was nearly 18 years old, I left my home and the Amish way of life to work in an RV factory. I immediately started saving money to do what I always wanted to do, travel. In 2017, I met my husband-to-be, Bryce, and after a year of getting to know each other, we quit our jobs, packed our bags, and started doing seasonal work all across the country. A few years passed, we started to miss our home and our families. We decided to take a break from our traveling and spend the holiday seasons at home reconnecting with family and friends. I soon began to realize the importance of furthering my education. But how? The places we worked were remote and out of reach of schools, teachers, and classes. I knew I must take advantage of the fact that I finally had the chance to work on advancing my education, so I made a phone call. The helpful people at Impact Institute gave me the courage and confidence to step back into the classroom after so many years had passed. So after my first day in class, I began to study with dogged determination. I enjoyed crossing off subject after subject after I studied each one. It was satisfying to watch the little blue boxes fill up each time I received a new level of difficulty. 2 weeks passed when my teacher mentioned 2 weeks passed when my teacher mentioned the fact that testing days were coming up. I grew more determined and started studying for hours at home. On the day of the test, I was grateful for the hard work I had put in. A few days later, with a sense of self-satisfaction and pride, I reviewed my test results. My hard work had paid off. My hope in achieving my HSC will eventually lead me towards an even higher level of education and to greater things in my life. And her teacher, Kimberly Sharp, said, because Rachel was in class consistently and spent a lot of time at home studying, it was of great benefit to her. She had one of the highest HiSET scores we've ever seen before. Bart is here this morning with JAG updates. Good morning, Bart.
Morning, Jerry. Good morning, Adult Ed family. Couple updates, nothing too deep. Just try to get through them fairly quickly, and I can take any questions if needed. You see my contact information on the side if anybody needs anything. Think of a question after this. Alrighty, so the big thing is we've talked about it the last couple AE calls, but the State Career Development Conference is next week, next Friday. At Ivy Tech Community College. It's finally back in person after a 2-year hiatus, so we're glad about that. Again, thank you to Amy for being a judge. We always appreciate the Adult Ed team's support on this event, both at the regional level and the state level. The awards, if you're not able to attend, which is fine, the awards are at 1:15 p.m. and they're streamed live on the JAG Indiana Facebook page. You do not need to have a Facebook to be able to see it, but if you do, that's fine as well. It's a great chance to see kind of the JAG kids at their top of their game, getting awards and getting scholarship money and things like that. Commissioner Payne will be there. We have the Vice President of JAG from Washington, D.C. will be there as well to give remarks and hand out awards. So really encourage you to check part of that out or all of it out if you can next week. Next slide. JAG is participating in something called the Empathy Project. And certainly it's not unique to JAG, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about it. It's through it's overseen by Serve Indiana, and it's designed by community employers to get them engaged in service learning. And certainly with our JAG folks kind of participating in it, there's a certain percentage of service learning that has to go on in our classrooms to meet some of our initiatives. But the Empathy Project is something that's pretty cool. It's taking data that shows that most companies that are motivating employees to come on board are doing so with the lens of people wanting to work for companies that have a service learning component, wanting to work for companies that are quote unquote doing something in the community. They gave us a cool presentation on it, on all the data behind it. But certainly if it's something that you guys are interested in, if you say, hey, you know, I want to get involved in sort of service learning at the regional level or the employer level around the state, there is a June 8th kickoff meeting. You can reach out to Mark McAlevey at Serve Indiana if you're interested, or you can just reach out to me and I'll connect you, since he sat in on our JAG coordinator meeting and talked about it. So the service learning will all be around, you know, doing things for needy populations within those communities, but it's really designed to engage all sorts of community partners, including students and especially employers. Next slide. Alrighty, the next thing is another JAG update, a lot of JAG stuff this time. Our summer training seminar is coming up, and we are going back to an in-person format after, again, a 2-year hiatus. It's sort of a hybrid, actually. Oh, hi, Jerry. Oh, okay. You just popped up. I didn't know if there was something I missed. So our JAG summer training update, June 29th will be in person at the Indiana Government Center South. And then 2 of June 21st, 22nd, and 23rd will be a half-day virtual training. So if you are interested in presenting on something related to AE, or you're interested in presenting on something that you're a subject matter expert in, please let us know. We're always looking for folks that want to give their expertise to our JAG specialists. It's a captive audience of about 150 to 200 staff. So if there's something you feel our youth worker population needs to know about from your end, especially with sort of a 2-year hiatus, please let us know. Reach out to Christine Schaefer. She kind of oversees all our professional development, and you can see her contact information at the bottom. So does anybody have any questions for me on any youth stuff going on?
Not at this time.
All righty. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bart. Really appreciate you being here with us this morning. Let's move on. Let's continue our discussion from last month about HSE test preparation. Denise of Wayne Township Adult Education is here again with us this month. She will share some thoughts about the writing section in just a few minutes. As I said last month, Denise is here in part because the HSE overall pass rate has dropped in Indiana. The average pass rate for the full battery stands at nearly 70% through March. Obviously, the change in test is a factor. The task pass rate for program year 2020 was nearly 83%. And 9 months into program year 2020, the task pass rate was 78%. This is still 9 percentage points less than the current HiSET pass rate for the same period. And on this screen, you can see the breakdown of the overall HiSET average through last month. Obviously, regardless of what test vendor we use, math has always been problematic. As you can see, reading is not far behind writing. Science has the best pass rate to date. So Denise has so graciously agreed to come back this morning and provide some tips about writing the essay. Welcome, Denise.
Hi, thank you, Jerry. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for having me here again today. I just wanted to let you know that I'm glad that we can share information that we've learned, and this information that I'm going to present today has been gathered. We started using the test at a glance, which I know HiSET always has us refer to, and then we've been taking the different HiSET materials to help reach those goals and to touch on all those points at the test at a glance, as well as analyzing all of the data we've received since we started giving the exam here at Wayne. We started giving the HiSET exam here at Wayne Township in September. Next slide, please. So I broke the first part of this presentation down into the multiple choice section of the writing exam, and really pointing out some of the vocabulary that we found that's important. We also want to make sure that not only our students understand this vocabulary, but they can apply it as well. So I started with the organization of ideas, which in the multiple choice section is 22% of the exam. And we found that this vocabulary is extremely important for our students. So we start teaching this vocabulary in our language classes, and then this information is also reviewed with our students in our fast track boot camp program. So you can see a lot of times main idea and paragraph, topic, sentence. We do know that chronological order is an issue that we have to work with our students, which then we can combine with transition, inclusion. Conclusion. So again, this is just important vocabulary that we make sure our students are aware of. We have created some Quizlet vocabulary cards that we give students links to so that they can review this vocabulary not only in class but on their own time. Next slide, please. And then for organization of ideas, these are the strategies we're teaching, not, again, both in the classroom at all levels. We start teaching these strategies at our class levels that are even at the E and M level. It's more of a basic understanding so that when our students move up in class to that higher level class, which is at that more at that D level, and then preparing to take the HiSET exam. Again, these strategies are reviewed during our fast track boot camps. So one is choosing the best topic sentence, and then one that is a struggle that we work on a lot is moving sentences to improve the sequence of ideas so that students understand the order of how to read paragraphs in sequential order, and then as well as write them. Transitions is another skill we work on a lot in all of our classes, removing irrelevant details. And then these next two, both dividing paragraphs and combining paragraphs. There are lots of practice questions on the different practice tests that you can use to teach both of these skills. And then finally, analyzing the paragraph structure. So again, all of these strategies are what we're teaching in our daily language classes, as well as reviewing in our boot camps. Next slide, please. And then this is taken from one of our resources, and I have the last slide will show all the resources that I've been referring to in this presentation. But one of the things that is important, and we all know that students have the skills to answer the questions. We've been teaching those skills, but what gets students hung up on the test is not understanding what the question is asking. So this is just one process that we try to teach our students to help them not only read the question, but to understand what is being asked so that they can answer it correctly. So step one, we tell them to read the passage first, and then you're looking at reading the question. And it's important too, if you can't find the answer to the question right away, is to identify the main idea and supporting details of that paragraph that's being presented. Again, organizational pattern is so important, looking for those transition words, and then finally selecting the best revision. And again, a lot of the practice tests show, and what we use to help in class is identifying what is the best topic sentence, what is the best concluding sentence, how can we change the order of sentences to make this paragraph easier to understand. Okay. Next slide, please. The next part that is worth 43% of the multiple choice part of the exam is language facility, and there's a lot of vocabulary there. Again, this vocabulary list was put together by using the test at a glance, the resources we have, as well as from looking at data, and then what we see with the alignment with our practice tests. So clauses are taught a lot, as well as the complex, compound, complex sentences. We do spend a lot of time at all levels teaching dependent and independent clauses. Again, run-on sentences. That is one area that's really hard for students. a lot of times we just want to keep adding that comma and just keep going and going. So we want to make sure students understand run-on sentences and how not only to identify them in passages and correct them, but as well as write them correctly in their own writing. A simple sentence and the appositive phrase, coordinating conjunction versus subordinating conjunction. I just watched an excellent lesson from one of my teachers teaching these two skills in class last Thursday, and it was really, to explain when to use a comma, when not to use a comma, using the acronym fanboys. So these are two strategies that are taught often in class. Again, connotation, denotation, and then idiom. I see a lot of that, especially if you have English language learners understanding the idioms. We were just listening to a teacher talk the other day and says it's on the house, and so many of our students just didn't understand what on the house meant. So again, just talking those idioms out and helping students understand. Synonyms and modifiers are important, and as well as parallel structure. And I know that parallel structure can be one of the areas that we spend extra time on in the class. Next slide, please. And then these, along with that vocabulary, is the strategies to teach. So they kind of overlap, as you can see, but understanding the difference between dependent and independent clauses, and then understanding that, an independent clause can be just as much easy to understand as a sentence. The compound and complex sentences, making sure that they're punctuated correctly. Compound, complex sentences, again, we're about the coordinating and supporting ideas. Modifiers correctly, making sure we don't have dangling modifiers, so that is taught often in class. Understanding the parallel structure, that is one of the big parts that we see at the test at a glance, not only in what needs to be covered in language facility, but well as the college and career ready standards. And then we talk about analyzing that word choice, going back to denotation, connotation, the idiomatic expressions, and then also understanding domain specific language. This can be a great skill that we want to teach. Again, this focusing sometimes on our English language learners. They may be reading an article about something that is unfamiliar to them. So to get that domain-specific language integrated and embedded into our curriculum. Next slide, please. And then we go to one of my favorites as an English teacher is the writing conventions, which is 35% of the multiple choice exam. It's a very important strategy that we teach from the beginning is correct verb form and verb tense. And so we have to get into those irregular verbs, then past, present, future, present, perfect, all of those different forms. We do talk about that a lot in class. Making subjects and verbs agree. And as students are learning a new language, you have to make sure that that agreement is there. So a skill that needs to be taught. And then that also happens with using the correct pronoun and then being able to identify when pronoun agreement is wrong and how to fix that problem. We're looking at using the modifiers correctly, comparative versus superlative adjectives. As you know, in other languages, a lot of times the adjectives are after the noun, where here it's before the noun. So we want to help in that area. We work with students to correct their run-on sentences and fused sentences, as well as correcting those sentence fragments. So those are areas that we touch on to help with the writing conventions portion of the HiSET exam. Next slide, please. And then other skills to teach, and there are many, but capitalization is correct. How we use capitalizing words correctly with the proper nouns at the beginning of sentences. I know there's also, we talk in class about whether, if you say Kingsbury Elementary School, everything needed to be capitalized versus if you're just saying he went to school and that the word school would not be capitalized. So those are just some examples used. Punctuation being used correctly. The ending marks go well, but internal punctuation is area to work on, those semicolons, colons, your dashes, your ellipses, and of course, the comma. I know that we have to go over that skill a lot. Commas being used not only to combine sentences, but with interjections and conjunctions. Finally, recognizing the correct spelling. We do touch upon that in all our classes. And then using reference sources correctly, which that has changed. It used to be having, getting the dictionary out and looking up words, but we also talk about how we can use those resources electronically. Next slide, please. And then touching on writing the essay, I know in the past I've put up a few different slides that we present to our students to help organize the essay, but these are the skills we teach in different steps in classes before we then go ahead and have the students write the argument and essay. And one thing is just the first step is to analyze the arguments in text. So we're trying to find as many texts that have both sides, the pros and the cons. And again, one of the resources at the end is where we have about 15 different paired passages. So just how to analyze the argument, understand what the passage is saying. Then we want to talk with note-taking, collecting your evidence in those texts so that you can use that when you start writing your essay, and then developing your position or claim. And we do also tell our students that sometimes it's easier to develop an essay on maybe it's a position you don't agree with, but if it's something you can or feel stronger about writing about and supporting. We remind students that they're not being judged on their position or claim, how to organize those details. There's plenty of graphic organizers that can be used. I know some use the T-chart, make an outline. One of our teachers actually breaks those parts out, and she refers it to as the hamburger model. We then talk about developing that supporting conclusion, and then the importance of using varied and precise words, not using conjunctions, not conjunctions, contractions, or slang terms. And then it's very important that we let the students manage their time to plan and write so that they can get it done during that timed essay portion in the writing exam. Next slide, please. And this is how we suggest our students plan their time for writing the essay. And we, as you know, with the essay, it's offered first on the HiSET exam, which is different in task, and we encourage our students to write the essay first. We think this is the best strategy, and we find that writing the essay first, one, make sure that they don't forget to write it, and two, we have a stronger essay score by doing that essay first. So we suggest that students spend 2 minutes reading the prompt, just again, reading and understanding what is being asked by the test, and then 4 minutes to read that first argument of first essay number 1, and 4 minutes for essay number 2. And then, deciding, well, where's your thoughts? 5 minutes to organize, plot down your thoughts. Where's your stance? Which claim do you agree with? How can you support that? And then always remember to provide that counterclaim. And then there's 25 minutes to write the essay. And again, we let the students know they need that introduction, state their claim, provide evidence from the essays, but as well, and it's so important that, and which is newer for us to do, but part of the test of glance is to provide your personal experience into the essay. That was one of the areas we did not add at the beginning of HiSET when we started in September, and when we were analyzing our scores, found that was the missing piece. And now that students are adding that personal experience to strengthen their arguments, we've seen our scores improve. So we do touch upon that. We also make sure that the students understand not to just rewrite the essay that's given to them in one of the prompts. They need to choose a stance and then support their stance with evidence and personal experience. And then finally, please ask them to spend the last 5 minutes to reread, revise, and edit their essay. And then again, the writing portion is 120 minutes. Most students we hope that the students get that first essay part done in about the first 60 minutes. Okay. Next slide, please. And these are all the resources. Look, some of them probably are a repeat of what I've shown before, but these are the resources that we use. I will say the writing one is there that is available is wonderful, especially since the prompts are already there, and you can also use those prompts to teach paired passages and crossover questions for reading. So that resource right there can be twofold. So if you have any questions, I know my information was available earlier. I'm welcome any questions or emails, and I just want to thank you, Jerry, for having me, and everybody else. It was nice to speak with everyone today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denise. Another excellent presentation, and I'm sure we will call upon you to probably do another presentation in April if that would be possible. Excellent information, so concise, and just good tips for helping our teachers help our students with writing. So thank you again. Thank you again. Well, let's move on to HiSET testing. Adam is not here today. He has been doing some webinars for Indiana. He has one scheduled this afternoon, but Megan is here this morning with some HiSET updates. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning, Jerry. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Jerry. Yes, I did a presentation as I was acting as I'm Adam over yesterday over reading for the HiSET test and what it's going to take to pass the HiSET reading test. Please join us for today for the rate of fluency and on Thursday for the math test. Please note too that even though we say it's 12:30 to 1, that we would actually have we're going to have a few minutes to get set up, so it won't really start exactly at 12:30, but it'll start just around there. And I want to give a special thanks to South Bend for being on. Okay, now that I'm no longer Adam, I'm me now. There are some updates on the HiSET exam. Next slide, please. Okay, so on today, we are doing the webinar for the reading comprehension and what it's going to take to pass the reading test. Or excuse me, today on the writing fluency, and then on yesterday was the reading, and then on Thursday, it will be the math mastery. I know it says writing, but it was actually going to be doing the math on Thursday. Next slide, please. These trainings are scheduled for an hour and a half to ensure that everyone's questions are covered, as well as to cover the pertinent information. Please note that the state of Indiana will not be handing out any certificates over these trainings, and you'll need to keep track of them yourselves through your program. However, you do need to mark these in inters. You will be marking them as HSE TABE, and a credit is going to be curriculum. This is a requirement for all PDFs to be attending this. We have these posted on our website. If you cannot attend, you can still watch these webinars at another time, and they will be counted toward your PD hours. If you register ahead of time, you will be notified when the webinars can be seen, and you will have a follow-up in the fall conference at the IAACE conference in the fall. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, accommodations. Please note that HiSET disabilities directly, if you have need assistance or have any questions, you may copy me on any emails or correspondence with HiSET. But please note that HiSET is the test vendor, and they do have the final say. Instead of putting your student's email address on the disabilities forms for HiSET, you can now put your directors or your test administrators, whoever email address, whoever is trying to get the accommodations for their student. If you have not been notified, you can also log into the HiSET and go to eReg for each student, and you will see the accommodations for your students. So please do not panic if you have not seen your accommodations for your students. If you're not getting an email, you can still look on it on the eReg on your student portal. Next slide, please. Okay, we have updated our testing policy. Students are now allowed to mix and match languages. So instead of just taking all English or all Spanish, you're now allowed to take a subject and a couple of languages if they prefer over another. So there are 2 languages that the test is offered. It is Spanish and English. So if a student feels more comfortable taking the writing in Spanish and would like to take the reading in English, the tester may do so. The second change to this policy is the 30-day waiver. I will be sending this out to you. Now, waiver will also be on our website. We know that life happens and there could be certain circumstances where you cannot wait 30 days for a retest. You will need to submit the waiver to me, and I will determine whether a student can retest before the 30 days. Please keep in mind, if I do the waiver policy, a student will have another chance to pass. So even if they fail after they do the 30 days, they still have only one more chance before 2023. Otherwise, they'll have to wait until 2023 to retake the test. If a student's not ready and fails the second attempt, they will only have one more attempt. So please keep that in mind when you send in a waiver, that that will only cover for one test. Next slide, please. Please make sure this form is filled out completely and that you have all appropriate paperwork attached to this form. This state is requesting that TABE scores, the high-set practice scores, the original test scores, and other documents. Other documents can be, but not limited to, a letter from a teacher, doctor's note, college and readiness scores, a letter from parole officer, or any other documentation you feel is pertinent for the state to make a decision. This is where you are fighting for your students for them to retake a test. Next slide, please. According to the field, and this is when I say according to the field, this is coming from our providers that have contacted me and given me this information. So thank you to everybody who has helped me put this together, Region 3 and 9 particularly. According to the field, what it takes to make past a high set is a 530 on a level M, or a 4 or 5 on level D, or 4 or 5 on level A. We're not asking that you show proof of test score since the state of Indiana is paying for the test. It is a requirement that the individuals must be enrolled and take the practice test. On the practice test, it shows that a tester is prepared or well prepared based on the high set test scores. If you have not, please go to the link on the slide and you will see that the high set considers well prepared or prepared. And the reason could be any reason that you feel is valid. It is up to you to make the case on the behalf of your students. Please do not ask me to waiver a 30-day policy without the student taking the entire battery and without doing any kind of remediation. You have to prove to me that the student is doing work in order for them to succeed on the retest. If they do not succeed, they only have one more opportunity, and if they do not pass, they will have to wait into 2023. I cannot stress that enough. This time is valuable, please, just like ours, and they want to reach to them while we can. So thank you for all you do. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you very much, Megan. A lot of information that you shared this morning. Well, let's move on to something completely different. Karen and Elizabeth are with us this morning to discuss CASAS field testing. CASAS is the Comprehensive Adult Student Assessment System. Karen is based in Indiana, and I might say a former professional development coordinator for adult education when the state adult ed office was with the Indiana Department of Education. So it's good to have a friend come back to us and say hello and spend a few minutes with us this morning. A few of our ELL programs have stepped up to participate in the field testing and subsequent study. And Karen and Elizabeth are here this morning to talk a little bit more about the field study and the comparison study. Welcome.
Thank you, Jerry. Thanks so much for having us here. And a big shout out to the leadership team who made the connection. I'd like to also thank my colleague, Elizabeth, because she made the connection with you folks for looking at CASAS as an alternative. And then she lured you into the field testing fold, which is just a wonderful thing. It is great to be back home again in Indiana. Even though I never moved, I haven't been involved very much in the adult ed world here. So, so just to give you an overview, see, these are our currently approved tests. I coordinate the field testing project, which is really the research projects that are part of the process of getting our tests approved. So at the top here, you see that for ABE, we have reading goals and math goals, and our new math series is in what's called the final form studies. For those of you who don't know field testing, basically it's your learners or take our tests to show us different demographic data and to show us how the tests work. So this is part of our validation process. We use the data we collect from agencies all over the country to show the NRS that these tests work for all types of learners, and that's how we make our submission. So our ESL tests are currently approved through February of 2023, the old Life and Work series. And so we are field testing our new ESL reading and listening forms. If you'll give me the next slide, please. So the process of test approval and development kind of looks like this. So I showed you our reading goals, and they were thought to be part of our ESL tests. When we started field testing way back in 2015 and 2016, they were approved for ABE, but we found that we could not get good enough alignment with the English language proficiency standards. Our reading goals tests are aligned with the CCRs, and it just didn't work for ESL. So new items were developed in reading and listening, and we did our item testing, and then we started our final forms testing, which is basically final forms are pre and post tests, but we don't call them pre and post tests until they are approved. So we began that in late February 2020, and I think everybody probably can remember what happened in March of 2020. So our field testing came to a screeching halt. We've picked it back up this last summer and into the fall. And one of the elements that we particularly need is the comparison data with another approved assessment. So this is where your folks came in. Several agencies were selected based on their geographic location and the size, so we could get a broad demographic of learners represented from Indiana in the validation of these tests. We make our submission to the NRS in October of 2022. And with the plan to release our new series for the program year 2023-24. Next slide, please. It's obvious that your leadership team saw the value of participating in these research studies, and so we were very pleased. So for students, obviously there are great benefits, and it's a low stakes test, and they get some great practice and an opportunity to see what these new tests might look like. Also for agencies, field testing is included as instructional time, and your teachers get the chance to preview the new tests that will be coming out in July 1 of 2023. Also, the big picture is that the national study, the more involvement we get, whether you're CASAS users or not, the better off we are in well representing all learners in the tests that we are going to submit for approval. Next slide, please. So what some of your programs will be doing is they'll have learners in their programs who've recently or getting ready to take a TAPE Class E reading and or listening test. We're using all levels. Some of them will be field testing on our e-tests online. Some will be using paper and pencil. And students are going to take a locator or an appraisal to place them into a level test, and then they'll get a $5 gift card. Not on this slide, but we also are awarding some complimentary web testing units to those programs so they can explore our other online tests as a part of this process. So next slide, please. That's all that I have to offer for you right now, but we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, thank you very much, Karen and Elizabeth. I really appreciate all the information. I think maybe Laura might have some follow-up comments when she does her presentation in just a few minutes. If we get any questions, we'll forward them your way. And again, thank you so much. And Karen, so good to see you again.
Thank you. Same here. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye now. Well, we have another guest this morning. It is LaDawn Weston. She is the career coach and HSE orientation coordinator for Central 9 Adult Education. And she's going to talk a little bit this morning about a special leadership development program. Welcome, LaDawn.
Thanks, Jerry. Can you guys hear me?
You bet.
Good. Okay. So first slide, please. For those not familiar with the Purdue Leadership Development Program, it is a field-based professional development program within Purdue's College of Education, focused on providing in-depth training for local leadership personnel to develop, implement, and evaluate career and technical education programs and support services for youth and adults that has been run for the last 33 years by Dr. James P. Greenan, our program director. So each program year, participants in the program, known as LDPers, collaborate with Dr. Greenan to organize 3 workshops for the Leadership Workshop Series. Our 3rd workshop for this program year will focus on navigating employer and community partnerships within CTE and AE programs. Next slide, please. This seminar will be held online through WebEx and is free. Dr. Greenan's office will be sending out registration forms next week to all AE directors and leaders. An agenda will be included with the registration form, so we hope you'll invite your staff to attend relevant presentations after, perusing the agenda. There will be 16 hours of professional growth points available, and we hope that you'll also take the opportunity to invite any community and employer partners that you've been thinking about to attend. Next slide, please. Our goal for the 2-day seminar is to encourage and enable Indiana CTE and AE programs and local businesses and organizations to partner and create pathways and programs for students to earn industry-recognized certificates and possible job opportunities by identifying communication barriers within our own programs, generating buy-in both within our organizations and within the community, exploring ways to get the word out and generate interest, developing and maintaining quality partnerships, and learning about funding opportunities through different resources. Next slide, please. Our committee has enlisted many experienced colleagues from state CTE and AE programs, as well as state leaders and partners to share their expertise. So you can see here that our keynote speaker is Patrick Biggerstaff, winner of the ACTE's Champion for CTE Award last fall. And he'll be kicking things off on Thursday, April 21st, leading discussions about effective communication and relationship building within different audiences, such as the elementary level, secondary, adult education, and employers. Darcy Michelin, former Elkhart AE Director and current Director of Operations with the Northern Indiana Workforce Board, will share with us some best practices when finding and forming new community partnerships. And we'll also be joined by Daniel McNulty of the Patents Project, so we can learn about resources available for our programs to ensure accessibility and inclusivity for all learners. And Tony Harrell, the State Director of CTE and the Governor's Workforce Cabinet, will describe the state perspective when dealing with an ideal and effective employer partnership and how that looks like, what that looks like, and how the state can help us create those partnerships. Next slide, please. And then on Friday, April 22nd, we'll really focus in on the employer and community partnerships. Marilyn, our own Marilyn, will speak to us about funding opportunities both from the state and the federal level, as well as philanthropic funding. Mickey Grant with the Center of Workforce Innovations in Valparaiso will speak on the state Earn and Learn programs and other opportunities for work-based learning within local programs. And then we'll finish off that day with the current LDP cohort reporting on our program improvement projects. So if you want to know a little bit more about this program and how you might be able to participate in the future, we will be talking about the LDP program that day. We'll also have Sheila Klinker, State House Representative, giving us a legislative update, and several employer partners. And this is really one of the most exciting things we think is happening. And that will include the Riley Hospital partnership with the Wayne Township AE program, along with some other employer partnerships. And they'll be holding a panel discussion focused on how to form and continue quality partnerships. Next slide. So lastly, we hope you'll consider joining us for our program's 102nd seminar. So it's quite a tradition that we've got going on. And we just feel like it's a great opportunity for you to support your colleagues, network with other programs, and possibly be the spark to collaborate with your local employers to form quality partnerships that will benefit your students and your community. You can see that our contact information is here on the screen. If you don't happen to get that invitation to register through the channels, please feel free to reach out to any one of us to get that registration information to you. Thanks a lot, Jerry.
Thank you so much, LaDonna. Appreciate all the information about this valuable program. Thank you. Well, let's move to Jose. Jose is here this morning to provide updates about the launch of Indiana Career Explorer. Good morning, Jose.
Good morning, Jerry. Thank you, Jerry. Good morning to everyone. Just have a couple of announcements today, but I did want to say there was a message going to the field that the Career Exploration team is now scheduling dates and times for Indiana Career Explorer trainings. So if this was something that interests you or your staff, please don't hesitate to get a hold of myself or Pam Warner, and we can get you on our scheduling log. We do have specific dates and times, and so trainings will last about an hour, and then we have time for Q&A, but this will be more individualized with you and your staff, and it can be via in-person or virtual. So what I want to update on today was our assessments right now. Currently, we have 3 assessments in Indiana Career Explorer. We have our work values assessment, we have our interest assessment, and our work importance locator. The work importance locator was something that was similar to the interest assessment, and we figured we wanted something a little different, that more benefits our students. And so we decided to do some research into finding and to replacing our work importance locator. Next slide. So I'm proud to announce that we have finalized our partnership with the DeBruce Foundation. They have an assessment called the Agilities Work Profiler. This is a great assessment. We felt that this will definitely benefit our students more, and the output it gives out and the career exploration outlook it gives out is something that we really like and are aligned with the career exploration team. This will also replace the work importance locator, and when that does go out, we'll have an announcement, but this will be the actual 3rd assessment in the Indiana Career Explorer. Next slide. So again, what are the agilities? The agility, and they call it the AWP, which will be the Agilities Work Profiler. But again, the agilities are a group of 10 work activities that are found at different amounts in everyday job. So you can see the 10 agilities that they do have here. Next slide. Again, what it does is, one, it discovers your strengths and interests. It's a 10-minute assessment. It's a little bit longer, but again, the output once you do it and what you get from it. And I like the term add your agilities, because again, you have to be agile in the career exploration outlook. And so your agilities that it gives you when you're done is great information. It's a great career exploration outlooks. It has training videos as well. So this is something that again, we're very proud of, and we are very proud of this site. It is research-based and it's free. So that's one of the big things that we do love about that. Next slide. Again, some of the values with the work profiler. Excuse me. Again, we should, again, with the knowledge of your skills and how they're used to help you with the job. Translate your skills into work language. You can frame your skills and experiences in your resume. Speak better to your strengths in your interviews. And that's something that we really want to focus on when we're talking to our students, and also doing the career exploration piece of this is understanding, speaking to your strengths, and not just, talking to your peers or colleagues, but speaking to your strengths in an interview to make yourself look better for that. Again, see skills embedded in an experience and transfer those into different environments. And you can see the rest here. I'm not going to read everyone. Next slide. Some of our guiding principles behind the agilities, again, with our new partnership, and you'll see, I start seeing AWP, but with our new partnership, the Agilities Work Profiler and the Career Explorer tools, they're designed, again, and this is after many meetings and dealing with the DeBruce Foundation and our career exploration team, we came up with these tools that they're designed to do. And one is, again, expand and diversify one's career opportunities, guide individual efforts to build new strengths in the light of a wide range of occupational interests, and there are many. Also to enable a person to make career choices and assess whether they need to build new strengths in light of how their existing capabilities and interests relate to all occupational options. And so we are proud to announce that this is our third assessment. It's a great assessment, and there will be a message to the field and to the staff when this will actually be in Indiana Career Explorer, but I can tell you that it will be very, very soon. And so thank you. That's all. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Pam. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you very much, Jose. Let's move on to grants and contracts. Here this morning is Donna.
Hello, everyone. We are finishing up the mid-year incentive amendments. If your program has responded to the award letter email and told us where you are using those funds, I will send out a revised fiscal forms for you next week. Remember that your grant continuation applications are due in 37 days on April 15th. That's actually 27 working days. Next slide. You have been hearing me say spend, spend, and spend now for several months. So how are we doing on that? Here's a snapshot of regional spending as of the end of February. This spending update includes all things ABE, everything except for IELCE. You can see that 5 of the regions have reimbursed for 50% or more of their allocation. That is great news, and they are the reason that statewide spending is at 50%. Shout out to Region 3 being at 60% spending. However, that means 5 regions are at 41% or less in their spending as we near the end of the third quarter. And now let's take a look at the HSE fee reimbursement specifically. We are nearly 3/4 through the program year, and less than 1/3 of the HSE funding has been reimbursed. In my notes, I have pause for dramatic effect. Next slide. In December, we asked the programs to email us about their HSE fee reimbursement spending, and the results of that information prompted a reallocation of HSE fee funding for a few programs. Currently, we have 19 providers who have reimbursed for less than 20% of HSE funding, and 13 of those have not reimbursed for HSE at all. How serious is this? We're going to send out an email to all participating providers about doing a second HSE fee reallocation for the last quarter. Reallocating funds requires budget amendments. Budget amendments require contract amendments. And contract amendments involve 5 different offices in 4 different state agencies. That is how serious the matter of spending state funds is. And now I want you to take a real close look at the graphic. I will be sending the PowerPoint presentation out following the call today. I want every adult ed director to print this off and post this picture in your office as a reminder that with state funds, if you don't use them, you lose them. On that cheery note, back to you, Jerry.
Well, Donna, thank you very much for your good news and your cheer. Let's move on. Let's move on to Laura, and she will cover this morning what you, our directors, had to say in their survey results. She will also spend a few minutes talking about distance education. Good morning, Laura.
Good morning, Jerry, and thank you. I don't have any fun graphics like Donna, but I'll try and keep you all engaged. Just to start off real quick on the CASAS field test study, we are very fortunate that the timing aligned, where as a state, we were starting to look at different ELL assessments, and the CASAS field test study was still going on. So that's why we jumped in fairly quickly. I want to thank the programs that are in those geographic representations who have enough ELL students to help us participate. We are going to share the results and share as much information as we can as we conclude that field test study in June. So next slide. On a different note, we've done a couple of different professional development surveys over the past several weeks. If you all remember back in January 24th, we had a meeting down at the State House, and we asked both our directors and our PDFs, what are some areas of professional development that you think are really important to your programs and your students as we look to plan forward? You gave us lots of great feedback, and from that feedback, we were able to construct 2 surveys, one for PDFs and one for directors. You can see the information. We've already sent these surveys out. We had a 67% completion rate on the PDF survey, and ironically, it was almost identical for the director version that closed yesterday, and we had about 65% of the directors that we sent the information out to complete the survey. We will be sharing the PDF results at their meeting in March, and we will be sharing both the director and PDF results in the April webinar next month. Okay, we're going to do a quick review of distance learning. As all of you know, distance learning over the past couple of years, along with virtual instruction, became a much more key piece of instruction delivery for our programs over the past 2 years in the pandemic. And even though hopefully we're coming towards the end of that change in our instructional delivery models, distance learning and virtual instruction will remain best practices as we go back to what is hopefully more of a normal type of classroom for our students. So we want to take a few minutes and review what is distance learning, why is it important, and how are we capturing and using this data. Next slide. So just like all of you, when I have a question in adult ed and terminology, I turn to the Technical Assistance Guide for Performance Accountability under the WIOA Innovation and Workforce Opportunity app. I have a link in case you want to go visit this fun document on your own. And if you're asking, Laura, is that the document with 71 pages of guidance and 133 pages of indices? Yes, it most certainly is. So that's where I turn to find information on what is actually distance learning. And there's 2 key components to distance learning. There's distance learning in the initial 12 hours before a student is enrolled, and that is where contact must be verifiable with the participant and the program staff for it to be counted as distance learning. So it's like over the phone. It's just a way of verifying that we know who the student is. So that's in the initial 12 hours. Once a student is enrolled, it switches to more of a proxy format, and that's what we're most familiar with as far as distance learning. There's 3 types of reporting methods for proxy contact hours. You've got the clock time model, the teacher verification model, and the learner mastery model. Next slide. Indiana almost exclusively uses the clock time and the teacher verification model. Clock time is very simple. It's the amount of time that the student spends on distance learning. This is really easy to track if you're doing an online software, or if you have a student log where they write down how much time they've spent. The teacher verification model, and this is important because we've gotten lots of feedback from our programs in the PDF reports, that it's really a struggle sometimes for students to remember how long they've spent on distance learning. So in the teacher verification model, a teacher can assign an amount of time to usually a physical paper packet on what they think it would take a student to realistically complete it. This puts the control in the hands of the teacher as far as deciding how much time a student has spent if they can't remember. And it is also very helpful if a teacher knows that a certain student may take longer or less time to complete a certain type of packet. The learner mastery model is where distance learning time, this gets very complicated. You have to put together a module on specific topics, then you have to develop a proprietary assessment, and then they have to pass the assessment at a 70% rate. That's all in the NRS guidance. And all of those components have to be pre-approved from the state. So I really don't recommend a learner mastery model, and it isn't something we typically used, but it is included in the state policy as far as what you can use for distance learning. So once again, clock time model, teacher verification model, definitely the ways to go. But learner mastery, if you would want to explore that, we could help you with that. It's just a little bit more complicated. Next slide. So why is distance learning important? For so many reasons. First of all, it gives access to some of our students. We know that it can be a barrier for them to attend classes. So being able to assign distance learning just gives them more of an opportunity to participate in class and keep going with their learning. Engagement. If a student is willing to do work outside of class, we know they're more likely to be higher level engagement than a student who just comes to class and leaves and forgets about it until the next time they're able to come. Retention. So many programs struggle with getting students to that post-test. And when a student needs more hours to get to a post-test, distance learning can help increase their hours on a weekly basis, which means they get to the post-test faster, which means you're less likely to lose them before the post-test. And then most importantly, well, maybe not most importantly, but importantly, performance. Next slide. It's amazing how consistent distance learning helps Table 4. When you compare Table 4 to Table 4C, you're going to see that students who are completing distance learning on average have approximately a 6% higher gain rate on Table 4. So we really encourage it. It works consistently year over year. So this is something we consider a best practice. Next slide. How do we capture and use distance learning data? What is distance learning? Let's start with what distance learning is not. Virtual instruction led by a teacher in a virtual-based classroom is not distance learning. Distance learning is asynchronous, which means students are off on their own doing it. They're not doing it in a group format being led by an instructor. I know this can be confusing, but if you are doing virtual classroom instruction where you have a teacher connecting with students in that environment, that is not distance. That is actual class instruction, just like you would be in a regular classroom. Distance learning is verified by an instructor. That's why the teacher component or an instructional aide or even a life coach is very important. Distance learning is also documented and retained, which means that if you would have an audit situation, you can pull out that information from a student folder or a classroom log somehow for us to verify that learning actually happened. So, next slide. How do we capture and use distance learning data? Currently, we only have one report in Enters that provides data specific to distance learning. That is Table 4C, which I referenced a couple of slides ago. We are working on that. We know students and programs are using distance more than they have in the past, especially because of the pandemic. So we want to give programs a way to view that distance learning and be able to track its effectiveness at a broader level than just Table 4C. So stay tuned. Next month, I want to thank Matt Kreitz and Steve Sherb for helping us develop some new reports, but we're going to be sharing those with you next month. I'm excited. I hope you are too. If you need any resources, I've got a link at the bottom for the NRS guide and also for the DWD policy 2017-14 issued in April of 2018 that specifically addresses distance learning. So that's all I have. If you have any questions, I will answer them at the end of the call, and thank you for your time. Thanks, Jerry.
Laura, I also posted the link in the question because Barb Stith asked. So I went ahead and put the technical assistance guide link in as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. Amy will provide professional development updates. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning. Just a few reminders of a professional development opportunity. Links is offering on March 30th, 2022 from 3 to 4:15 Eastern Standard Time, introducing the tech-based coaching toolkit. I've included the QR code for the registration, so if you'd like to participate, that's available. Also, a reminder that the National Book Fund grant opportunity, the application date is coming to a quick close. The National Book Fund provides adult literacy and basic education programs with educational materials to help teach adults to read. The QR code for the application is also available. The eligibility criteria are: 1, having a clearly defined specific need or project for the materials being requested. 2, intend to use the National Book Fund materials directly with students receiving literacy instruction and/or with literacy staff, instructors, or volunteers. 3, not have received a National Book Fund grant during the 2020 or 2021 program cycle. And number 4, answer all questions on the application to the best of your ability. If you have questions or would like assistance, please reach out and let me know. I'd be happy to help with that. And one last reminder is the Professional Development Facilitator meeting for March will be on the 25th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I do intend to record the meeting again and have that available to watch at a later date if you are unable to attend. And now on to the Professional Development Facilitator second quarter reports. Laura and I have both looked through those and made some comments, and I believe I have everyone's return to them. If by chance I have missed someone, returning someone's report to them, please let me know. I have everyone checked off my list, but I may have inadvertently missed sending the actual email with your report. So please let me know. And I'd like to share some comments from programs on their successes, barriers, and best practices. First program being Area 30. We are going to be giving out trinkets, chip clips, and can coolies for those who turn in homework sheets and have completed their assignments, their take-home assignments. We are making heroes of the students who have enough hours to post-test and are making gains. So thank you for that suggestion, Area 30. Central 9. All ELL instructional assistants participated in a workshop to hone their knowledge and skills for assisting teachers and students in class and online. Instructional assistants received additional Burlington English training and a binder of printable resources. A peer who has had very good success with the student gains using such materials shared strategies with the group. Additionally, workshops for ELL teachers by level taught focused on ideas and strategies from a recent Pathways to Success virtual webinar, creating an active teaching and learning classroom. Thank you, Central 9. Goals Academy. Incorporating more distance options is helping our students stay connected when they are apart from class. Along with that, when students come to us directly from high school, they are already in the homework mindset. In addition, when you talk about the distance learning being an option to move through curriculum and assignments quicker, it helps students to be more willing to take it out of class. Thank you, Elizabeth. Great suggestions. Whitewater Career Center. Through a connection made at IAACE conference, the Whitewater Adult Education Center was able to purchase additional online resources through BoardWorks. This online tool assisted in the development of our level E and M students in reading, language arts, and math. This program solved the need of ELL students and those at NRS levels 1 through 3 who were currently not being served by the New Readers Press pre-HSE online program. Thank you, Whitewater. Impact Institute. Impact started an email thread to cheer each other on when gains were seen. Staff really got into analyzing their data and knowing when a gain was made. It helped to ensure staff to keep looking at the data, and we kept them pushing forward. Thank you, Caroline. Great suggestion. Wayne Township Adult Education. Wayne Township Adult Education has assembled CT for Hire pages, and our employer supervisor is working to facilitate connections between our students and local employers. In our follow-up outcomes, Wayne Township Adult Education is showing 77% employed in Q2 after exit and 86% employed in Q4 after exit. Great job, Wayne Township. Warren County Learning Center. Our numbers, not our percentage, continue to be lower than our pre-COVID numbers. Our unemployment rate has moved even lower. Nearly all businesses are hiring. Since they cannot find enough employees, the employees are working much longer hours. This does not allow time for them to spend in upgrading their education and employability skills. Due to COVID, we are still not allowed in the jails. Thank you for sharing that, Warren. It's a challenge for many programs. Warren, we provided teachers with additional information and resources about teaching with technology. We have created a computer cart checkout system for teachers to deliver engaging lessons using the computer. We are adding professional development opportunities for teachers to use technology in the classroom. We are creating resources to develop our students' digital literacy skills to navigate a computer, mouse, and other computer functions. Great development, Warren. South Bend Adult Education Center. We started an ELL incentive program where students receive small but meaningful rewards in reaching specific milestones in their journey with us. The incentive program consists of students receiving a student ID from our program once they obtain 12 hours of attendance. They will receive a small reward for consistent attendance and after taking their first post-test. They will receive one of our Adult Ed t-shirts when they make their first MSG gain. The incentive initiative has been received with a lot of excitement from our students and instructors. Good job, South Bend, with the initiative as well. River Valley Resources. Marketing is always a need and is a constant necessity. When businesses are hiring without diplomas just to fill spaces, it causes a twofold problem for adult education. Students don't need a diploma, therefore they do not come. And if they do not want to come, they are working, in some cases, extra hours to cover the need and cannot come. Virtual classes are affected as well. Thank you, Connie. That's happening also in many programs. Richmond, we have done much better sharing best practices among staff. We created a checklist of student tasks based off assessments, and it has helped us better focus the needs of the students. We will also be offering a free lunch raffle for students doing work outside of class. Their name will go into the hat, and we will pick a winner. Good job, Richmond. Marion. We have reintroduced a goals sheet form and a barriers form from the teacher's handbook, which the students fill out during orientation. We believe this will better enable the staff to identify ways that we can help our students identify and reach their goals, as well as recognize and begin to develop steps to deal with any barriers they may have. Thank you, Marion. Horizon. Our programming is blended learning, distance learning with face-to-face. We have found this blended approach is very popular with students. However, students need to grapple with their ability to learn online. Not everyone can or is disciplined enough to do so. Student persistence and discipline widely varies. Our instructor, coach, who maintains at least weekly contact, is invaluable to getting students on track. Great job, Horizon. And thank you very much. That is all I have for today. I enjoyed reading your reports, and I look forward to your final thoughts at the end of the program year.
Thank you very much, Amy. Let's move on to Roy this morning. Roy's got a lot of workforce education and IET updates. Good morning, Roy.
Good morning, Jerry. Greetings, Indiana. Next slide, please. Today, I would like to start off by highlighting some of our IET and WEI programs. When I talk about a successful IET, I am referring to enrollments or a high certification rate. When I refer to a successful WI, that correlates to enrollments or high achievement of measurable skill gains. This is reflected in the courses table 4. The measurable skill gains for WIs can be post-testing, HSEDs, industry recognized certifications, skills progression, or the progress milestone measurable skill gain. This month, I would like to highlight some of the great work being done in, thank you, Amy, being done in Region 1, specifically NEO under the leadership of Adrian and CWI under the leadership of John and Kitty. Next slide, please. Thank you. First, let's discuss the Parapro IET done by CWI, specifically at their East Chicago site. They have 2 sections running, and so far they have 100% certification rate for the Parapro certification course. Great job. Secondly, I want to talk about Adrian Carroll at NEO. They are running a very successful NCCER and OSHA 10 IET course with 2 sections. One section they do with the Indiana Construction Roundtable and their Build Yourself program. The first cohort had 11 students, with all of the students getting certifications. The other section they have runs in a correctional facility. The first cohort had 31 students, all of them getting their certification. In our last regional meeting, I asked Adrian what is the secret to their success, and she commented that it comes down to the teacher. They need to know how to teach the content. For NCCR, construction math is important, along with being able to meet students at their level. These were all in-person courses with some distance work and essential soft skills being done virtually. Next slide, please. Next, I would like to review a WEI course using the skills progression measurable skill gain. Now, as a reminder, measurable skill gains can be post-testing, HSEDs, certifications, skills progression, or the progress milestone. The skills progression is described as successful passage of an exam that is required for a particular occupation or trade-related benchmarks, such as knowledge-based exams, employer-required knowledge-based exam, satisfactory attainment of an element on an industry or occupational competency-based assessment, or other completion tests necessary to obtain a credential. So think assessment in the context of working with an employer. Next slide, please. One example of a WI using the skill progression measurable skill gain is the WI Marion University has with several employers. In this course, they get an NCCR credential and OSHA 10. Yes, you can do the NCCR/OSHA 10 as an IET or an IET WI combo course. Doing it as a WI with a skills progression allows you a little more freedom with the curriculum versus when doing it as an IET. One example, for IETs, you have to use the essential soft skills for the workforce prep. Now, Indiana Construction Roundtable does have soft skills incorporated into their training. So using the skills progression MSG allows the programs to utilize that soft skills curriculum. The skills progression will be documented when students successfully obtain the NCCR credential and the OSHA 10 certificate. Next slide, please. Next, I want to review a WEI course using the progress milestone measurable skill gain. The progress milestone is described as satisfactory or better progress report towards established milestones, such as completion of on-the-job training or completion of apprenticeship program or similar milestones from an employer or provider who is providing training. This is a measurable skill gain that you have the most flexibility with when working with employers. It allows programs to create training that is critical to the employer, and it is not dependent on industry recognized certifications or even assessments. Next slide, please. One example of a WEI using the progress milestone measurable skill gain is Central 9 under the leadership of Carol Bible. They have a WEI with Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio Regional Council of Carpenters. This is a pre-apprenticeship course. Once students complete this course, they will be accepted into the Council of Carpenters 4-year paid apprenticeship program. The Council of Carpenters provides guest speakers, hands-on instruction, and an OSHA 10 instructor. Central 9 has an agreement with the council for what needs to be covered in the pre-apprenticeship curriculum. The progress milestone will be completion of the curriculum, and it will be documented using a carpentry pre-apprenticeship checklist, which are requirements that were set by the Council of Carpenters. Some of the items on the checklist are complete the OSHA 10, complete the math for trades curriculum, attend classroom and lab sessions with at least 90% attendance rate, complete TAE post-test, get their HSED if applicable, complete application with the Carpenters Training Center, and provide Central 9 copy of their acceptance letter. Now, this is just some of the items on the checklist, and I want to thank Carol for taking the time to develop this pre-apprenticeship WEI. I look forward to seeing students progress through there. And always, if there are any questions or if you have an idea, please contact me right away. We can develop your course together. Thank you. Jerry.
Together. It's all about being together in this journey. Thank you so much, Roy. Well, let's move on and look at some trends and state data for program year 2021. As always, we compared program year 2020 to our current program year 2021. Enrollment, I'm happy to announce, continues to be up by nearly 1,600 students from the same time a year ago. This is about a 12% increase. Meanwhile, measurable skill gains are also up by about 2 percentage points from the same time a year ago. However, HSEs are down by about 630 from the same time a year ago. And this is a 25% decrease that we have in HSEs. And of course, part of the maybe difference is the change in tests, which I always like to remind folks of. Also, we wanted to compare program year 2021 to 2020. And when we look back 2 years pre-pandemic, Indiana's total enrollment is down by nearly 5,200 students, a 26% increase. Measurable skill gains were down by about 1.5 percentage points, 1.5 percentage points, and HSEs were down about 1,000 from 2 years ago. But the good news is for this current program year compared to last, our enrollments are up, our measurable skill gains are up. So thank you very much. Well, we have an old friend with us, not old, but Scott, it's good to have you with us this morning, and you are here to provide some information that we will be required to collect and report. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, guys. It's good to be with you. I am super conscious of your time, so I've got a few slides here, but I will try to make it as brief as possible. So essentially, I just wanted to talk to you today about effectiveness in serving employers data for adult education. So next slide, please. The effectiveness in serving employers data is something that the Department of Education, is actually the US DOL, is required to collect from us, and it is actually used for the state's overall WIOA performance metrics. And that includes every WIOA program that is housed at the state, which obviously adult ed providers are WIOA Title II programs, so that includes us in the adult education world. In the past, we have been recording this data or trying to collect this data in the past, and I kind of mentioned here in the slides, there's a couple ways that we try to do that. One of the ways is the partnership document that we made everyone fill out in the competitive grant process. If any of you remember that, there's a lot of weird questions that were posed about the kinds of activities that you were engaged in with those partners. And some of you might also be aware that every year, right around September, we send out a manual spreadsheet and we ask you to enter a whole bunch of data on businesses and employer partners and ask the same sorts of questions. So in the past, that is how we've tried to collect the data. And it's not a very efficient way to collect the data because we would send out those spreadsheets and they would come back to us, and then I would have to aggregate all the data and all of those spreadsheets into a single spreadsheet, which would have to go to the WIO reporting team that reports to the US DOL, and then they would have to take all of that information and put it into their data system. Next slide, please. So in order to sort of address that, we have written a effectiveness in serving employers data policy for adult education. It is currently in the public comment period. And when this is published, basically what's going to happen is we're going to give adult ed providers access to the CRM database, which is the database where we track programs like WRG, but also where WIO Business Services tracks all of the information on effectiveness in serving employers. So basically what will happen when this policy is published is on a monthly basis, we're going to be asking AE providers to enter some data on their employer or business partners. Now, I've gotten some questions about this already, so I just wanted to point out it's not as scary as it seems. You're not going to be doing a lot of duplication of data entry and enters and in the CRM. There won't be, you won't have to put in students or testing or anything like that. Basically, all you'll need to put in is the businesses that you're working with and whether or not you've done one of three things with them, which I've listed here. And these are WIOA business services activities. And these are the actual things that get measured and calculated into the state's overall WIOA performance. Thank you. So I'm just briefly going over this, and we'll cover, I'm going to talk about the training in just a second, and we'll cover these more in the training, so don't worry about it. I'm just going to go over these real quick. So there's a whole lot of different things that actually follow into the category of business services activities under WIOA. We're only looking at 3 for adult education. One is accessing untapped labor pools, and that's, you can see the bulleted list here. It's, if you're doing outreach to any of these groups in conjunction with your employer partner, if you're doing industry awareness campaigns, if you're doing joint partnerships in schools or community colleges, if you are helping an employer partner address limited English language proficiency with their employees or vocational training. So that's going to cover a lot of people. And you'll see in just a second, one sort of activity like having a WEI course on an employer campus can actually check off all 3 of these boxes simultaneously. Next slide. So training services, that's providing a business or an employer during the reporting period. So that's your typical WIOA year with any training assistance, customized training, on the job training, or incumbent worker training. Next slide. And as you can see, incumbent worker training gets its own box. So, I mean, I think we all know what incumbent worker training is. Next slide. So again, we'll go over those more during the CRM training that I'll talk about in just a second. So one thing I did want to add, in addition to sort of this requirement that AE providers report about their employer partnerships on the CRM, giving you guys access to the CRM also allows you to have access to the really deep and rich Dun & Bradstreet data that is in the CRM, which basically will list every single business in your region that's even close to you. It gives you all kinds of information about it. So if you're actually looking for new employer partners, or if you just want to have a sense, a better sense of what businesses are doing what in your neighborhood, it will be useful for that as well. Next slide, please. So there are going to be 2 separate trainings this is important. They are separate trainings. They are not, it's not a 2-day training, it's 2 separate trainings for AE providers on how to use the CRM. One will be on Wednesday, the 23rd of March. It's going to be at 10 a.m. The other will be the next day, Thursday, the 24th at 2 p.m. You could expect these to last 1.5 hours. It's not a super complicated data system. It's not a super complicated process. And we arranged it like this, 2 separate trainings, just because we know that, you know, we've got a lot of AE providers and a lot of people who will be doing this training, and we want to just be conscious of the fact that somebody may not be able to make one or the other. So we're offering 2. Next slide. So we sent out this email a couple weeks ago, but basically what we're going to need from you guys by, it says Friday, March 1st on here, but really it's by the end of this week, so Friday the 11th, we'll need from you guys just at least 1 staff member that you'd like to attend the CRM training, and we'll need their name, job title, and work email. The other thing that I didn't include on here, if you don't mind also providing which training you would prefer to attend, or the person that you're signing up for the training would prefer to attend, that would be great too. We just need to do that just so that we need this information just so that we can have CRM access set up for those individuals prior to the beginning of the training. Next slide. And that's basically all I have for you. So if you have any questions or you need any help with any of this, just feel free to contact me. There's my email up there, and you can feel free to reach out to me by telephone as well. And I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me this afternoon. Well, not quite this afternoon, almost. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate all your information. Let's move to inters and Matt. Good morning, Matt.
First, I'm going to say that I'm going to not keep you any longer. I'm going to skip any inters updates because there aren't any really for this month. And I'm going to go straight into the questions as soon as IAACE is done. So there you go, Jerry.
Perfect, perfect. Well, Jen is not here this morning for IAACE, but we are honored to have Sheila Butler, who is the president of IAACE. So good morning, Sheila.
Good morning, Jerry. Hi. Jen is in Cabo, and I'm very jealous. So our notes are our IAACE Board of Directors election ballot is going to be released on March 17th. We have a wonderful slate of candidates. So please see that and vote, and watch for the Meet the Candidates event this month, and make sure that your membership is current to be able to vote. I actually got my reminder this morning. The 2022 IAACE annual meeting will be on Friday, May 6th via Zoom. Since we are now doing a fall conference, we still have to have our annual meeting in the spring based upon our bylaws. So we are doing it on Friday, May 6th at 10. And we're going to follow that with a little activity of a chance to network with people of like positions. So we'll have some breakouts by positions where you can network and do some activities that way. Always make sure that you check out IAACE.com. There is so much on there if you haven't been there lately. Can I have the next slide, please? I don't think I can move it. No. So the IAACE conference notes, we are starting our call for proposals on March 16th to May 31st. And we'd like to get it all wrapped up before summer starts on people and we all forget how to work. So please watch for that. If you know of anybody that would be a great presenter, please send it, make sure they see it. If you are a great presenter, please sign up. You are invited to our next conference committee meeting, which is this Friday, March 11th at 12:15 via Zoom. And if you'll go to the calendar events, you'll see the invitation there to join. Next slide, please. And I'm also not Rob. I have more hair. But he had emergency surgery on Monday for a detached retina, and he is not allowed to be on the computer. He's not allowed to read, and he's not allowed to use his phone to text with. So if you need him, please give him a call if you happen to be privy to his cell phone number. He is home board because you know he can't stop working. So I am doing his advocacy report, and he gave me notes. He said that there is no bill hurting or helping us left right now. Everything is done, but that we need to remember that this is not a budget year, so there is no money issues involved. The session for this year ends at the end of the month, and he wants you to make a point to get a hold of your legislators and invite them to your events this spring so that we get in their minds and in their knowledge for next year. And just to remind that there is an Adult Ed and Family Day in September. And then there's another exciting piece of news that isn't really advocacy, but it is a way because students are our advocates too. But Christy McIntyre Gray and her crew wrote and won the COABE's Programs Succeed When Learners Lead National Award. And they are using this to bring student ambassadors to Indiana with the help of Connie McCullum and her team on the board, who is our chair for our Student Ambassadors Committee. And we are going to be meeting in April to figure out how that is coming. And that's next slide, please. And then, and what is new with you and your program? Please send IAACE an article for inclusion in our next newsletter. And I hope you read your newsletters. If you don't, go look for them. Please try to read them, and we will see you soon. Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks, Sheila, so much. You did a great job for Jen and for Rob as well, when we certainly wish Rob a very speedy recovery. So we have come to the close this morning. Please join us April 13th, 2022 for our next statewide webinar. We will, as we always do, email a registration link as we get closer to the date. Please have a good afternoon. And Mr. Matt, do you have some questions?
Boy, Jerry, do we have some questions. Okay, so I'm going to start with Lauren Bell. This was 4 minutes into the webinar. Okay, Lauren Bell asked, may we use some of our mid-year incentive funds for a stipend for teachers for a job well done? She thought she would clarify. Somebody's muted, somebody's not muted.
Okay, yes, you can use your mid-year incentive funds as a stipend for your teachers. That's part of program, and that's okay.
Okay. There was another one in regards to state funds. So Donna, I got to find it. And it was about, okay. I did not know we could buy t-shirts with our grant funds. Is this the case? T-shirts are a super idea as incentives. Just didn't think we could spend on those.
I am going to look at that, and I'm going to send that out with some information with my fiscal notes after today's call to just address that to make sure we all have the same thinking on it.
Okay. This is from Amy Engel, and this is for Denise. Denise, is there a place on the HiSET reports that will give more details about the essay other than the score was 2? What areas were not done correctly? Denise.
I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I will be honest, that's a great question. I would love to find that same report. So the only one I've been able to find right now is the one you're saying, the essay, and it says your score, points possible, and what's required. So at this time, if someone has it out there, I'd love to hear that information too.
Okay. Hope that helps. Amy, we'll look into it, or Megan can look into it. This is more of an actual question for Megan. Can you resend the links for the HiSET trainings again that were already sent out for the webinars?
Yes, I'll send those out again.
Okay. Specifically, Amy Wood was wanting those. So.
Okay.
All right. Also, is there any way, this is from Amber Cates, can we get contact info for Karen and Elizabeth with the CASAS field testing? Did we not share that, or we going to share that?
We will share that information. Laura will get that out.
Okay, okay. This is for Jose. Jose had to leave. Lauren, email Jose your question. I'm not even gonna, I'm not gonna be rude, but I'm not gonna read it because he's not here. He had to leave for another meeting. All right, and this is from Karen Hill. Will there be additional funds for HSE fees for programs that may need it?
That is one of the things we're going to look into when we send out the email in a few days. Going to see what the standing is with everybody's spending, what they believe they're going to do for the rest of this year. And then there might be a chance that we would reallocate funding that's already been out there and put it to where it can be used the best.
Okay. Is that good, Karen? I hope so. All right, this is from Abby Martin. And this is a Megan question. When a student takes the HiSET test in Spanish and English, can they mix format, paper, pencil, and computer? Also, will their diploma reflect what subjects were taken in Spanish versus English?
No, diplomas won't reflect it. It will just be, now their transcript will say what languages they, or what subjects they took in their scores, but it will not say what language they took them in. I would have to get that verified, but as far as I've been told, no. And then the first part of the question was about the mix and matching. What was it, Matt?
Yeah, can they do paper, pencil, and computer based on those?
Yes, they can mix and match medias. Now, the only thing with mixing and matching medias is that if you retest, so like if you retest on, or if you test original on paper and they want to take it on computer, there will be a fee for going from paper to computer for the retest. But you can mix and match medias on the original. But then the retest only goes toward what the original was. So they took writing on computer, the retest they had to take writing on computer.
Okay.
Or else there would be a fee on paper. Okay.
There's just an additional fee associated if they go up to the online or whatever. Okay. They can mix and match. Good. All right. So Scott Mills, this is for you. There's two of them. One is a question and one is a statement. First question. So do they need to attend both CRM trainings or just one? It was confusing. And I muted you, Scott, because you're not muted. So I will unmute you now.
Like I said, there are two separate trainings. There's two separate 1.5-hour trainings. They're the exact same, but they are separate. And it's designed that way so that if somebody can't make one day or one time, there's coverage.
Okay. All right. And then Karen Hill just made the comment of that those trainings are happening while a lot of people are on spring break. Any thoughts on that?
Do I have any thoughts on that? I don't. I'm only going to be leading one of the trainings, and
will they be recorded?
We can definitely record them for sure.
That was my next question.
I assumed that they were going to be recorded.
All right. Okay. No. All right, so this is from Angie Ruffo. I tried to get an exit interview form from Southport High School, and they said that if the principal signs the withdrawal form, that 16 and 17-year-olds do not need an exit interview form anymore. Is this true?
No.
Okay.
All they have done is withdrawn from school. They have not exited from school.
Correct.
So then her follow-up to that is, if this is not true, then whoever has an adult ed program near Southport High School needs to contact them if possible to let them know.
I had a similar email not too long ago saying that they didn't need an exit form. I said, no, you do need an exit form. So I don't remember who it came from, but it sounds very similar to what I've already reached out to somebody about, or someone reached out to me about. So.
Okay. Angela, you can email. You can email that specifics, and maybe we can get you some assistance. This is from Cheryl Morris. Golly, words are hard today. Cheryl Morris. Megan, high-set testers must choose one language for their entire test, correct?
No,
That is not correct.
they
You
can now
must choose
mix
at
and
the
match.
start of the test if it's going to be English for this section and Spanish for this section.
Yes.
But
So it's when a student goes on HiSET online and registers for the test, they'll have to pick one. They'll have to pick one language. But then when you go to registering for the test, when you will have to schedule it for what they want. So they want to take writing in Spanish, you'll have to schedule it for writing in Spanish. If they want to take reading in Spanish, you'll have to schedule it for reading in Spanish. And then if they want to take math in English, you'll have to schedule it for math in English. So you have to make for sure that you're scheduling it for the right thing. Otherwise, the whole entire test, if a student registers on their own, the entire test will all be in Spanish.
is that clear, Cheryl? Do you understand? Giving her a second to respond there.
And again, we just wanted to provide, by changing our HSE testing policy, we wanted to give you the programs that additional flexibility for those students who would maybe struggle if they did not take it in Spanish, maybe one or more of the tests. So this provides that flexibility for you and for our students.
Okay, Amy, no problem. That's anybody else got any other questions? Anybody else so that we can go? Because we've got that other HiSET training here in just a little bit, and I want to eat.
Thank
Denise,
you so much. Oh, go ahead.
can they switch languages for the retests? Megan?
Yes, they can
So
switch
if
languages.
they fail it in English and they retest, can they do it in Spanish? Is that
Yes.
acceptable?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it just has to be in the same media or else they'll charge for the different media.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Long day.
Have a great afternoon.